Welcome to the Hunting Beast Report, a live video podcast with Dan Infalt and host Jeremy Gillespie.
Today's podcast. Oh, whoops. I forgot I put the ads in there. Lou is going to yell at me. I think I just cut Lou's ad off. So that's a good way to start today, Dan, with me messing things up. Hey, that's what happens on the live show, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for those that don't know, go to Stealth Outdoors and check out stealthoutdoors.com. There. We covered Lou now. Sorry, Lou.
Is Lou watching? You see
I
him
don't
in
know if he's on today or not. Yeah. What do they say? Nobody's perfect. But anyways, Dan, on to today's topic. We're going to talk about deer management, what we think of some respective states and our wish list. We want to get the audience involved, hear what they like, what's working in their state and what's not working in their state. So I think a good way to start off today would be, Dan, I want to ask you, what states do you think are doing it well and why?
Be interested to see what people type in the comments, what they think the best state is for the, not the best state to hunt, not the best, funnest or anything like that, but best opportunity for a big buck. What state would that be? Now, if you'd ask me, I wouldn't have to think long to say Iowa. It's probably the best opportunity at a big buck. I mean, look at my hunt. I hunted public land this year, exclusively down there. I just went down there based on maps and stuff and hunted public land. Got a couple of tips from Scott Buckley on certain properties, but pretty much was already looking at those properties. Went down there and I think I saw a Pope and Young every time I hunted. You don't do that too many places. You don't do that in Michigan. You don't do it in Wisconsin. So Iowa would be at the top of my list. I think number two would probably be Illinois. I think those two states are probably at the top of the spectrum for big buck opportunity.
And one of the first things that jumps out to me is neither one of those states has a modern rifle season during the rut.
Correct. That's a big part of it. That's why they're so good. It's shotgun. They got shotgun hunting, right? And like you said, they're not hunting during the rut. And neither one of them has multiple bucks with gun, right? Now, Iowa's starting to tend to go that way with its residents, and you're going to start to see a downfall on the size of the animals then. Another thing is, too, I don't hear either one of those states crying about how many deer they have. They're not jumping up and down saying we got to kill all the does, we got to kill all the deer. There's too many deer. They're gonna destroy. They're happy they have deer. They're making money off of deer.
Yeah, and I know it's happening out here now in Montana. The CWD is spread pretty good in Montana, and they're trying to do what Wisconsin did, 10, 15 years ago. And there's a lot of initiatives now to kill off all the deer. And in Montana, you only get one deer tag all season. You can take it with a bow, you can take it with a rifle, but you only get only one mule deer or only one whitetail. Things have changed a lot since Barry was living here. We had Barry Wenzel on talking about he could get 50 bow deer tags or whatever. That was crazy. But they're talking about for the first time offering second buck tags in certain areas, and even areas that have been hammered and have real low doe populations. They're reluctant to cut the doe population back because they want to kill all the deer to stop CWD. And it's like, didn't they look at Wisconsin and see how good that worked there? Not very.
All right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, CWD in Wisconsin was a ploy. It was not. It was real, but it was like they were like, oh, good, we got CWD. That's our DNR.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to knock the deer population down, and that was their excuse. And then hunters still wouldn't cooperate, so then they started scare tactics. They started getting a hold of the media and saying, well, what if it morphed into people? When it can't, and they know it.
Yeah.
They started dropping little things, and it sucks when your agency kind of works against you. We're supposed to be the bosses of the DNR, and we're not. Before I go too far down that rabbit hole, though, we should talk about the worst states, which for opportunity at giant bucks. I mean, you can't, you couldn't swing a dead cat by the tail and not hit somebody that says they're from Michigan, and Michigan's the worst state. obviously.
And growing up in Michigan, I've been guilty saying that in the past, but after traveling around and hearing stuff, Michigan, especially southern Michigan, the lower half on private land predominantly because the public lands are so pressured. Michigan does produce good bucks and it's got potential. I think
it's certainly got potential.
Yeah, I think you got a lot tougher time in states like Florida or some of the Northeast states where like Vermont and New Hampshire come to mind where the deer density is super, super low. And on top of that, they got hard winters with a lot of lake effect snow and the antler size isn't that great either. So I think of some of those when it comes to tough states.
So Wisconsin's kind of a step above Michigan. I mean, we got some big bucks. I think we have real similar genetics and stuff. Well, not really. You got some smaller rack. You get those 6-pointers a lot and stuff. But I mean, the biggest difference, if I want to say this, is like if I look back at Wisconsin when we were shotgun zone in the southern half, we had a lot better bucks than when they opened up rifles. Which now they're starting to, the shotgun areas that are such great places, now they're going to start ruining them by doing straight walled rifles and all that stuff. But when you look at Michigan, when I go to Michigan and I hunt there, whether it's southern Michigan or it's the UP, every time I go to that state, I see a bazillion deer. It's pretty rare I see a buck. If I do see bucks, they're spikes. And I've seen a lot of spikes, more spikes in Michigan than I've seen anywhere else. And it ain't because they grow more spikes. It's because there's more deer in that age class. And the problem I see, that the thing that keeps Michigan from being Wisconsin is Wisconsin separates our buck tags. We give 2 buck tags out. Michigan gives 2 buck tags out, but we split it up 1 gun, 1 bow, because it's a known fact that gun hunters are the ones that knock those numbers down. Bow hunters like to think they do, but they don't. When you look at the overall kills, it's gun kills. You give the gun hunters all 2 tags, and you will knock down the bucks really quick. And because of that, the bucks have a real hard time getting of age. A lot of guys want to get a buck really bad. I mean, that's a known fact. If you have a 1 buck state for gun, if they shoot that 6-pointer, they're done. Some people are willing to take that risk and do that, but other people will take that 6-pointer and wait for a bigger buck, or they'll take 2 6-pointers. But you're going to kill a whole lot more deer because the first deer is going to die if the person's in that mentality. So for that reason, Michigan's real doe heavy and buck light. And I think the only way they could fix that would be to have 1 buck only on gun season. And I think if I ran things, I'd probably do 1 buck only, period, for a couple of years to get a rebound. So at least there's a balanced herd. They talk about, they're trying to manage the herd for health and stuff. It is not healthy to have, 30 does to a buck. That's not a healthy herd. So they're not managing and healthy. Now, Wisconsin, I mean, what they do here is they just kill numbers. Like they started doing doe kills, doe seasons and stuff. They started with Ernebuck. And when they put Ernebuck in place, it started really slaughtering the deer. And then the people spoke up, and the DNR wouldn't do nothing about it. They wouldn't stop it. They kept pushing it down our throats. So the people went to the new governor that we had gotten, Scott Walker, and they got him to go in and stop it.
Dan, real quick, for people that aren't familiar with Ernebuck, for states that didn't ever have that, explain what that is.
Ernebuck means that you have to shoot a doe in order to shoot a buck. They give you a sticker that validates your buck tag. So you have to shoot a doe to shoot a buck. And when we went even further than that, there's certain areas with the CWD where bucks were unlimited. For every doe you shot, you got a buck tag. So guys would literally shoot every single doe or antlerless deer they seen to get buck tags. And they weren't just shooting does, because they were shooting bucks to get buck tags too, because literally an antlerless deer is any buck that is spikes are less than 3 inches. To hit 3 inches, it's a buck. So button bucks and small spikes and stuff would get them a buck tag too. So I knew guys that had 18 buck tags in 1 year that they earned.
Wow.
You know, I knew a guy that I met a guy in Rome Pond, a school teacher who shot 8 deer in one season, all year and a half old bucks. And when I said, "Why would you want to do that? You're ruining the hunting for everybody." And he looked at me like I was an idiot, and he says, "The DNR wants us to do this. This is going to help save the herd. It's going to make the management better." It's like, you know, they're just brainwashed. It's all a numbers game here. Every place where I've been into big bucks and lots of big bucks, every state has high numbers of deer. You know, they say things like large numbers of deer will cause the antlers to go smaller and stuff to get people on board. But literally, there's a place I hunted in Illinois, a ranch. I didn't shoot anything there, but I went down there and I hunted for a week, and I saw 100 deer in one sit, over 100 deer in one sit. The population was so out of whack, it was insane. You couldn't reach a leaf as high as you could reach. The understory was completely eaten. All the plant life was eaten at ground level. And I don't know how anybody made $1 off a crop there. But the place was leased for deer hunting. And D'Acquisto had it, and he wouldn't allow anybody to shoot does. It's the way he is. And it was all buck hunting, and they never shot does. And the population was way out of whack, but yet 2 of the deer shot in that in a 5-year span that he had that lease were in the top 10 of Illinois' whitetails. Doesn't sound like it was affecting their antler growth. And I seen some just absolute monsters when I was down there. So I'm not promoting a population that high that is ruining your native species, plants and stuff like that. I'm not promoting that at all. I'm just saying that the population doesn't hurt the size of the bucks. I mean, there is a balance because of other species and because of plant life and stuff. But when you get down to Iowa and you hunt down there, the biggest difference from hunting where I'm at is when I hunt where I'm at in Wisconsin, I might see 1 or 2 deer a week on public land. Down there, I saw 1 or 2 every half hour. You know, I'd see 15, 20 deer a set. I'd see a Pope and Young every day because the population was so high. You know, it's not out of hand high, but it's at a point there where they're happy with it. But here they'd go all out, you know, blow the sirens and kill every deer, you know, and that's why we can't become a world-class state in Wisconsin, because we have the genetics for sure. I would even go as far as to say right around where I live, the genetics are probably better than down there. When you get, you know, deer in that 5-6 year old range, they're generally very big antler wise, you know.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of getting to that age class.
If you look at the Boone and Crockett book, Wisconsin's pretty consistently #1. So hard to deny that. I mean, I know it's a bigger state with a larger deer population and more hunters, which all that goes into Boone and Crockett numbers, but it's hard to argue that genetically anything's wrong with Wisconsin.
Right.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Wisconsin, let's talk early season. I know early season is one of your favorite times to hunt. You've said it repeatedly. You've shot some of your biggest, oldest deer early season, sometimes on the first day of the season. And Wisconsin's got an opening day that isn't set, right? It's not a fixed day every year. It kind of changes the season setting. And some of the states out west and even some of the ones east, like South Carolina, I know they got an early opener. Florida, they open super early. Some of their seasons open in July, which is crazy. And then like states like Wyoming, North Dakota, Montana, those are all early September openers. So what's your opinion on an early September opener in Wisconsin? And if you're in favor of it, would it be buck only or buck and doe, and why?
My dream early season would be to open around the end of August, early September, like September 1st, maybe. But I would be even in favor of like the 3rd week in August, like the a week before the end of August, so the guys have a chance at a velvet hunt. But I wouldn't allow bucks probably till towards the end of September. I mean does. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I wouldn't allow does to be shot till probably October. close to it, because there's such a bond with the does and the fawns are so young at that time frame. So it would be buck only, and it wouldn't really hurt the structure at all. But guys would have chances at trophy bucks, but you get one buck. You know what I mean? So if they shoot it in August, they're done. It would spread the season out more. So your hunters wouldn't all be in November or all be in, kind of like Nebraska gets. They get a lot of early season guys because they start September 1st. They fill up and then they don't hunt later. And it makes it, less crowded towards rut time or whatever. It spreads people out more.
Yeah, I think that's anecdotally, at least. I'm not a biologist either, but it seems like a lot of the states that have later openers, like I think Massachusetts comes to mind. Theirs is like mid-October, second or third week. Iowa's in October 1st, Michigan's in October 1st, a lot of October 1st. And I believe, like I said, anecdotally, a lot of that is related to what you said, doe and fawn relationship and making sure the fawns are viable to get through the winter before doe hunting is allowed.
Pretty easy to have a buck only section of the season too, though.
Yeah, and these days especially, I think velvet hunts are more popular than ever. You see a lot of people traveling to states like North Dakota. I know Tennessee, they've got a velvet only hunt, and those seem to be pretty popular. And that's a good point that I hadn't thought about. You brought up about spreading the pressure out, especially in a one buck state.
Right.
Well, let's talk about the opposite end of the spectrum. I know this is something that you've been critical of before, and I'm not from Wisconsin, so if I'm mischaracterizing this, let me know. But the holiday hunt or the late antlerless hunts, some states have seasons, like Ohio comes to mind. Their archery season goes all the way into February. So what do you feel like is an appropriate cutoff for the late season, and what do you think about like late season doe hunts?
Well, they currently what they did was because everybody was upset about them forcing the holiday doe hunt down our throats and ruining the late season. It basically turned the whole late season into a doe hunt. No bucks allowed. So in response, they gave us the month of January in the counties that have that doe hunt. And I'm in favor of that January hunt, but I'm not in favor of a doe hunt then. It would be buck only if it were me. So I would basically go from the third weekend in August to January 31st. However, January and maybe even from like about probably December 15th to January 31st would be buck only. And then that first month of the season would be buck only, and your does would be in the middle. And reason for that is the same reason I'm so dead set against that holiday hunt. That is the most ridiculous thing Wisconsin does. So a holiday hunt, what they have is a 10-day hunt that goes through New Year's weekend and the previous 9 days, right? So that hunt is a doe hunt only. The trouble with that is they won't tell you this. They don't put this in print anywhere, but I've talked to the biologists in Wisconsin. I've had biologists tell me straight out, 39% of those does are button bucks because they're so stupid they're walking around. They just got kicked out from their mom that year. They don't know what's up. They don't know enough to hide during the daylight enough.
That is the dumbest animal in the woods.
Right. 39% are button bucks. 11% are shed antler bucks. A lot of people don't realize that. I know people who shot the shed antler bucks. They go, oh, I didn't know any were shed. Yeah, they shed at that time of the year. It's the end of the year, which is why if I did a January hunt or even from December 15th on, I'd say you should probably be holding out for bucks with antlers, because you don't want to be shooting, decent bucks that don't have antlers. I don't think it's good for management. You want to shoot does, shoot them in the middle of the season. In Wisconsin, what we have is Scott Walker. He came in at the perfect time. He's probably the best governor we ever had for hunters, and arguably the best governor. But I would imagine some people would argue with me with that for certain stances he had. But for hunting wise, he came in and protected the hunters against the DNR. that was getting rogue and going off on their own and doing their own thing, despite the hunters. The hunters are supposed to control the DNR in Wisconsin. We're supposed to have a voice. So he mandated that they had to have a voice. He mandated that we'd have a group that oversees the hunters in Wisconsin. So he set it up so that they would get like the top hunters from each county that are seen, on social media and well known and stuff like that. And he'd have them on a board, but he'd also have farmers on that board, other people that are affected by deer populations, right? And he wanted them to be able to oversee population control, what the DNR was doing to manage the deer herd. And as soon as they got him out of office, they still had to follow through with the mandate. They turned it into those people were going to just say, okay, we have to kill 50 deer in this county, or 500 deer, let's say. How are we going to kill 500 does? Are we going to use rifles? We're going to use bows? We're going to use bonus tags or earn a buck? And literally those people on that CDAC board don't even realize that they were put there to be able to say, no, we're not killing 500 deer. Or yes, we need to. Not the DNR tells you what they have to do, and then you just agree and play their game while they high-five in the corner and laugh that you're so stupid you follow along with it. So I seen one guy stand up against it, and that was Ron Koulis. And when he did that he was in Waukesha County, they immediately targeted him and his family, and then busted him for baiting for his father for carrying a bucket of corn out, and then kicked him off the CDAC. Huh. But they were out to get that guy as soon as he stood up to him.
Yeah, that's a good point, because Montana, a lot of the regulation setting here, and I've noticed this since I moved here, there's the biologists, they have their input, but there's, I forget the technical name, but it's kind of like the CDAC. There's a committee, but then there's lobby groups too. And there's two big ones. They're called United Property Owners of Montana. These are the guys that own giant ranches, and almost all of them outfit or lease their ranches. And then there's the Montana Guides and Outfitters Association. And this is kind of just a message to everybody listening. There's the game agency, which is Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, so FWP in Montana. They have meetings regularly, and they ask for public input. And you can bet that the United Property Owners and the Montana Guides and Outfitters, they have a lobbyist at every one of those meetings that's paid, that's speaking their position. And the hunter turnout is real low. A lot of people aren't informed when these meetings are. So just as a whole, if you have problems in your state, like what Dan's talking about with the CDAC, find out when those meetings are, find out who you can write, get involved. It is work, but I mean, that's a way you can directly get your voice out and impact the regulations in your state.
Yeah, you look at Iowa. Right now, there's this huge rant about Iowa wanting to give so many tags to the outfitters. Well, that's because the outfitters show up and ask for it.
Same thing.
The residents are showing up and saying don't. That's the whole reason. It's they're not going to listen to non-residents. They're going to listen to residents, but the people who speak up, the DNR agencies are supposed to listen to you. They're supposed to listen to your complaints and work with you.
Yeah. What do they say? The squeaky wheel gets the grease. And if that's the outfitters, then that's going to be the people they're listening to, if that's the only voices they're hearing.
Where I live in Jefferson County, we used to have a biologist who was really good. They got rid of him. He was a friend of mine. As a matter of fact, he recommended me to be on the CDAC board, and they flat out said no, they would put me on there because I speak out against them. But he would have meetings and invite people from the public. I mean, just general meetings. I mean, he'd say, hey, Dan, get a bunch of guys, off the forums and stuff and meet me at the bar. Let's talk about, how we're going to manage this property. And we would. And he would we want to do logging here. Do you think that's okay? Do you like the farming that we're doing on it? Because they're leasing farmland on the public. Do you like that? Because we were thinking about making it grasslands for the birds and stuff like that. And we'd have discussions. And him and I seen really eye to eye on what was wrong with the management in the state. And I think that's what ultimately got him transferred to a different area. And the guy we got now literally has been selling our properties and stuff. And without having a meeting about it, he does it underhandedly. I go to a property with Eric and I go scout it, and a whole bunch of people in the community hunt there. It's a bigger property. It's fun, lots of nice deer. We go out there and scout it. And 2 weeks later, the season opens, we go out there to hunt. And I get there and I'm going to go out there and I look at my Spartan Forge app and it's showing it isn't public. I'm like, come on, last week it was public. So I call the warden up and I asked him about it and he says, no, Dan, that's public. It's always been public. I'm like, it's showing it's not. He goes, well, let me just check with the biologist. And he gets back to me. He goes, yeah, they sold it. He goes, he didn't even say nothing to me. They sold the property, big property. And so I questioned him about it, and he says, well, it was Scott Walker, your buddy. So obviously he's a liberal. Your buddy, Scott Walker, he says, made a mandate that we have to sell landlocked properties. I go, it's not landlocked. He goes, yeah, but it's, you got to walk 600 yards. Yeah, everybody's walking to 600 yards to get there. He just sold it out from underneath us when there's landlocked properties that they won't sell because somebody in the DNR lives next to it. And they got a free property. It's just crazy. It's crazy. He's been going into like the public lands and making huge trails right through the most remote portions of the forest for people to hike and jog on and stuff. He took one huge property that's a swamp and made it into a dog park. It's just crazy. And they don't have meetings. They don't tell you they're going to do this. And it's crazy. I'd like to see some organization pop up for like once public, always public. And have people lobby for that the only way a piece of public land could be sold is if it's landlocked. Otherwise, it belongs to stay public once it's there,
Yeah, that stuff happens out here too. One of the things that they're trying to do in Montana, they definitely have their faults, but FWP and some of the programs or the nonprofits that partner with them, like Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation is a big one. They raise a lot of money. And they've been pretty good about buying access or doing what they call land swaps, where they'll exchange what would otherwise be landlocked public with a rancher in the area for some private land that would expand the public in that area. So they've done some good stuff like that. But even then, people aren't happy because they say, "Oh, the land you're swapping is not equal quality or whatever." So it's hard to make everybody happy. But there are options for that type of thing, right? Like the piece you're talking about. Would have been better off to keep that and swap something else maybe. But
yeah, for me, I don't care if they sell property. I care, obviously, but do it fairly. Let people vote on it. Announce you're going to do it. Don't hide it. Don't try to do it under the table. Announce it. You're going to make some major you're going to take bulldozers out here and make access into a remote area that never had access before and alter the landscape, alter the public land. Have a meeting about it. At the same time, they're telling us that they're mowing down brush and forest to make grasslands because they want to keep the land like it is. And then they dump 4 tons of gravel out there to make a jogging path through it.
Yeah, kind of hypocritical a little bit there.
Mm-hmm.
And that, just on a tangent, that's one of my biggest complaints about some of the Midwest states. And one of the things I like best about Montana is out here, you can still outwork people. There's big enough parcels where you can walk 4, 5, 6, 7 miles in a straight line and still be on the same property. It seems like everywhere I go in the Midwest, the access, it's hard to get more than 2 miles from any access point. So when you're putting in stuff for hikers and joggers, obviously that's access for hunters too. And those hard to get to spots just got a lot less harder to get to.
Yeah. Speaking of management, I think we talked about this a little before the show, but did you see that mandate they did in northern Wisconsin? Well, not a mandate, but I guess they're proposing a law. I don't know if it'll go through or not. Some legislators are proposing a law that they stop the doe hunts, the gun deer doe hunts. And I posted about that, and I couldn't believe the kickback. And some of the comments were so bizarre to me, like. I don't see, 7 deer all season, and now you want to take away my doe? I just shoot a doe during that doe season, and it's like, why are you shooting does if you only have 7 deer out of 50 hunts in a season? You know, why do you want to shoot that doe? You're killing yourself, you know? But I think that's a great thing that they're mandating, but they should have did it statewide. You know, we got a long enough season that if you can't shoot a doe in the regular season, it's probably because there ain't enough deer. I mean, just look at Iowa, managed great. Again, just use them as an example. Great management, at least up till now. I mean, they're changing some things, but at least up till now, it's been great management. And you can go down there and shoot a doe if you're a decent hunter on just about any day. Go climb any tree. And that's the way it should be. I mean, it shouldn't be that you get one every day, but let's say out of 4 hunts, you should get an opportunity, 4 or 5 hunts. And if you're not getting those opportunities, there aren't enough does.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, I have no problem with shooting a doe every here and there, but at least have the numbers to support it. Like down here in southern Wisconsin, we do have numbers to support it, but I'm always leery about you don't know what they're going to do with these. You know, like our holiday hunt, it could just happen to hit with a great snowstorm, and these guys just wiped a deer out one year. You know, it's scary the way they got that set up because it's unlimited tags.
Oh, unlimited doe tags during that period.
Yeah, you can just go buy more.
Wow.
They literally give me, when I buy my tags, they give me 4 free doe tags. If I want more, I can buy all I want.
Yeah, a lot of the counties in southern Michigan are like that. And the one, I forget the guy's name, but one of the deer managers there basically released an open letter to the public this year, pretty much begging people to shoot more does. And not to get back on Michigan for too long, but I'll probably get some slack for this, but I'm going to say it anyways. I feel like there's like a generational difference in how people approach deer hunting and taking does specifically. So like the guys that are probably my age and older, they would rather shoot, and this is broad strokes, I'm not speaking for everyone, but on average, they would rather shoot a spike or a 4-point than shoot a doe, even though, like you said, there might be 8 to 10 does to every buck. And I don't understand that because it's like, I got a buck mentality. And one of the things I noticed when I started hunting out west is the culture is very different. Like people, again, broad strokes, not everybody, but people almost shame you if you don't shoot a mature animal. They're like, why'd you shoot that? Let it grow a couple more years, shoot a doe instead. The culture is very different. And I don't know why that is, but it seems to be the case.
Yeah. You know, one thing, when you do get into a good state, like say Iowa or something, and people have opportunities at big bucks, it changes them. When you go out and you actually do, you see them on a regular basis, you have opportunity and stuff, you start hunting them, you don't all of a sudden turn back into a meat hunter or something like that. You know what I mean? They can make all the rule changes they want, but once it's ingrained in the society, it's hard for them to change it. So even if they like now Iowa lets landowners shoot multiple bucks, and now they, if they want to open up more and more hunting to like outfitters and stuff, I don't think it's going to hurt a whole lot if you got guys with the right mentalities. Like in a perfect situation, like a lot of people will say, Dan, you're too much for controlling this. Let them put all these doe tags out and stuff, and then we'll look at how many does there are on our property and we'll decide. Yeah, but you're saying your neighbor's going to decide too, and the guy down the street and right. Eddie over there, you don't even trust with a gun, he's going to decide too. And a lot of these people are not the brightest people in the world. Like I said, that teacher that shot 8 deer, we had my buddy Dave, the one who passed away, he had a friend, like a neighbor friend that he knew that had some really good land and was killing a lot of deer. He'd kill a good buck every year, gun season, and every couple of years he'd shoot a good one with the bow. And when they did the CWD thing, he started trying to get all these buck tags to shoot as many bucks as he could, and he shot 36 bucks off his property. Now this is private property and stuff that was good property, but the next year he was begging to go hunt by Dave's or someplace. He's like, I don't know what happened. There's no deer around. What do you mean you don't know what happened? You shot 36 deer.
That's crazy.
What do you think happened? And they had, he's inviting all these people over to hunt, and he's like, well, the DNR wanted us to. It's like, what? I don't get it. You can't give a person. It's like telling a person you can have, $50,000 right now, you know, and you don't have to work for a year or something like that, but you're going to lose your job. Yeah, I don't know. It's just the temptation is there. You know what I mean? You're tempting this person to do something, and they're not going to think right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I lied. I want to talk about one more thing about Michigan, because I know we got a lot of people that listen from Michigan, and this is something that gets a lot of people fired up. And Dan, you might not know about this, so I'd be interested to get your take. Michigan, the first season every year is youth rifle season. So before any bow hunting, before any gun hunting, 2 weeks before the season opens, there's a weekend where youth hunters can hunt with a rifle and take any deer before anybody else. So what's your take on that? I know some guys love it. It's very unpopular. It's a real polarizing issue.
You know, it's kind of a strange question. Where I come from, when I grew up as a kid, a kid didn't get to go hunt on special hunts. You didn't get a special retarded kid hunt. You didn't get a special kid hunt. You didn't get a special girl hunt. You didn't get, you know, and that's what it's getting to. They're going to start having all these different combinations of, certain groups of people that can hunt.
Yeah.
Really, it was something special for a kid to finally be of age and get to join the camp with the men and hunt equal, not a bunch of men standing around you inside of a box blind going, oh yeah, this one, shoot the, you know, the one with 9 points there, shoot him behind the shoulder, and grandpa's hugging you and dad's hugging you. That ain't hunting. That's killing. That's putting his kid in a killing position. He's not learning about hunting. He's not learning anything. And a matter of fact, I would say kids that go through that, they probably going to get sick of it and bored of it after a while, because that's not really hunting. The hunting is the proving you're a man kind of thing. You know, at least it was when I was a kid, and that's all gone away. And the problem with it is, you would get invited to camp. And I can remember when I was a kid, they took hunting so seriously because it was for meat and stuff, that when you got invited to camp, you'd get a talk to. Now, I didn't get this because my dad didn't hunt. He worked 2 jobs and stuff, and I just started hunting on my own. And just before I was even of legal age, I was going out back and just hunting. But most kids would go to camp and they'd get told, now listen, Uncle Bob hunts over there, Tom hunts over there, your dad hunts over there, Grandpa hunts over there. You're going to have to find your own area. You're going to have to find your own spot. And they weren't walked out to the spot. They were trusted to, now you're a man. You know, maybe the first hunt you hunted, you know, when you're, you know, 9 or 12 or whatever. You know, when I was a kid, they wouldn't let you hunt till you're 12.
Yeah, same.
But maybe you take the 12-year-old, you put them right beside you the first hunt or two. But after that, you're like, okay, and go find a spot. Maybe you go hunt over here. You know, but they didn't give them the good spots. They didn't put them on deer. They earned them just like everybody else. And when they finally got one, they were excited. And it was usually a smaller deer, because they shoot the first deer that came in and they were happy. And they would try to work their way up and become like everybody else and become good hunters. And that is gone. It's gone because they've taken it right out of hunting with the way they regulate things. Now, if you don't take your kid on that special kitty pat on the head hunt, now you're the bad father to that kid, because all of his friends are getting that. You know, so you're not teaching them anything. It's like if you live in your neighborhood, like where you live, say you want to teach your kid respect and morals and ethics. And part of that is, okay, you want to earn your keep around here? You want money to go out on Saturday with your buddies? You mow the lawn. You're going to earn your keep for, you're getting free lunch here, free everything else. You need to clean the dishes for your mom on Tuesdays. You need to do this and that, right? But meanwhile, your neighbor don't have to. They got a maid. And that kid just gets to sit outside, play in the pool, run around on his bicycle. And the other neighbor's like, I don't do that to my kid. That's mean. You know, how do you raise your kid? Because he's seeing that.
Yeah.
You know, so society has a big impact on those kids. You know, but on the other hand, because of this society thing, you know, I get it to some degree. When I was a kid, there was 3 channels on TV that were black and white. There was no video games. There was no computer. There was nothing. The phone hung on the wall next to my dad's head. And if I wanted to talk to my girlfriend, I had to stand next to him and talk to her. So there was nothing else to do but to go outside. You know, there was trails beat along the rivers where people were fishing. You don't find it now. Now it's like a jungle trying to fight through along those rivers, right?
Yeah.
You know, there was forts out in the woods. You could walk down the street and find some baseball game and join in. You can't find any of that no more. If it ain't organized sports at a school or something is organized, and you won't find it. Kids just don't get involved in that stuff. So now we do kind of got to cater to them. So with that said, I still don't like a special season for kids. I don't like it. I think they should go on the same season. And if dad thinks that they should be sitting there patting them on the back, well, then dad can do that on opening day if that's what he wants to do. But there's a gun season for everybody. And age shouldn't have a requirement there.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
There's a lot of guys that think that way. There's plenty of people that think it's great too, and think it's great for hunter recruitment and all this stuff. And I mean, I can see an argument on both sides, but it's just an interesting
another thing
point.
I don't like?
Yeah, go ahead.
Like around here, they sponsor a lot of these mentored hunts, mostly with turkeys. So these kids that haven't ever gotten to hunt turkeys or whatever get to go hunt turkeys. So they get these guys that are supposed to be good turkey hunters to donate their time to help the kids. They're not the kid's father or anything, but they're going to donate their time. And I know some guys that do this, and they love doing it because they get to do it before turkey season, and they get to go turkey hunting, and they don't care if they're the one that shoots it, right?
Yeah.
And they wanted me to get involved in it, and I looked at it. I came in and looked at it, and I did not want to get involved, and I left. And the reason I didn't want to get involved was because there is absolutely no mentoring. They call it mentoring, but there is none. The kid shows up in the dark. They walk him to a blind where the kid's never been, and put him in a blind he did not set up. Looking over decoys, he didn't even know we're out there till it's light out. And this guy calls in the turkey, and he says, "Okay, shoot that one." That's killing. That isn't hunting. That isn't mentoring. That's just flat out have a kid show up in the dark and kill something when it gets light out. I don't like that at all. Mentoring should be they take that kid for a weekend, they take him out hunting, they teach him how to hunt. They teach him some skills. They take him out there, they let the kid make some decision making. Here's what we see for turkeys. They usually roost over here. You know, if we put a blind here, this is what I think would happen. And the kid can say, well, I think I might get seen there. What if we move? Okay, let's try that. Let them fail. Failing is good for people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Lessons are good for you. Learning things, taking them out there when you scout and showing them the tracks, showing them, you know, the calling and getting the turkey to answer. I mean, we're just doing too much to ruin hunting. You know, we're turning into everything else. I mean, just like a flat out example here. Monday, I brought squirrel stew to work and shared it with a couple friends there. And there were some people there that just went nuts. You're eating squirrels? What the hell's wrong with you? People don't eat stuff like that. And it's just like, it's meat. They don't even understand it. It's, you know, that the beef is the same thing. It's coming out of a store. You're just hiring somebody else to do your killing for you. You know, we're so out of touch with reality because we're doing these things with these programs and stuff where we should really be stepping away from that and going back into teaching these kids about hunting, what hunting's about, how to hunt, and how to do it for themselves. Not doing it for them and patting yourself on the back and saying, hey, I'm great. I took a kid hunting today. You didn't not. You took him killing.
Yeah, it's kind of like an analogy to the trades, right? You get a lot of on-the-job training in the trades. And then college, you go to college and they make you take all these mandatory classes that don't have much application in the real world. And I feel like it's kind of like that with some of these mentored programs. And I tend to agree with you. It's, you know, I think they have good intentions, but maybe not the greatest execution on some of those programs.
Right. I'm not saying there's something wrong with these people doing it. They're just, I don't even think they realize they're doing something wrong. But yeah. I've got this way of thinking where I always look at stuff with an open mind. And I think that's a positive attribute that I have. And I can see flaws in it heavily.
Well, Dan, we got a lot of chat tonight, so let's check out. I ask people to let us know your favorite. I take a lot of people off
with my opinionated bantering.
I said earlier on, I dropped a message and said, let us know your favorite or least favorite part of your home state regulations. See, John Dunstan says Alabama's $3 and our season runs mid-October. through February 10th. Alabama's kind of a unique one, and I'm sure you know, because they imported deer from different places, so they have like 3 different ruts in Alabama, which is kind of weird. Farrell said 1 buck with a long season is interesting, like kind of how you were talking about, maybe a late August or 1st of September opener going into January, but only 1 buck. And In the Woods says very, very few people hunt the late season in Ohio. You know, we mentioned Ohio goes all the way into February. Daddy Pub said he wishes they would not allow baiting in Ohio. That's something I ran into in Kansas too. So Kansas outlawed baiting on public land and trail cameras on public land, but you can still bait and use trail cameras on private land. So it's makes it hard to get the does onto the public land when guys are dumping out semis of corn on.
It'd be kind of hard to regulate the cameras on private land, baiting too.
Yeah,
but the trouble with allowing baiting on private land is you can literally pull the deer off the public, and that's just not fair.
Yeah.
You can pull it off of your neighbors, and literally I've been next to people that baited heavily, and it sucks because they pull all your deer away unless you do it back.
Yeah,
it forces people to retaliate, feed or bait. You know, even the bucks that won't come into that bait in daylight will go over there and hang out because that's where the does are, and it's bad all around. It just makes it hard on public land because a lot of your public lands are, you know, the big ones might only be a couple thousand acres, and within a couple thousand acres, if there's bait on a property on the edge of that, they can pull them right off.
Yeah, it's not great when the laws are separate for private and public.
Yeah, I just recently I had somebody I used to go to school with sent me a message about all these big bucks. He just kind of looked me back up. He's like, he's got onto all these big bucks in Ohio, and he's like, I got a lease here, man. It's private. He goes, I just put truckloads of corn out, dude. He goes, we got so many deer in here. You come in here, you get a real big buck for your videos and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, no thanks. Then to me, that's not hunting, you know. But that's the way people think. And I mean, if some people, the buck is worth more than the experience. That's sad.
Yeah. Yeah. Ohio's one where I don't think, at least when I was hunting there that I know of, they didn't have any cap on bait. Like Michigan, they went back and forth all over the board where first you could bait, then you couldn't bait, then it was 5 gallons, and then it was 2 gallons. And so it's been all over the map. But some of the states, I know it's uncapped, or you could literally, like I said, if you wanted to, you can dump out 10 yards of corn, you know, a whole dump truck load.
I'm kind of split on that a little bit because, you know, some old guy that's, you know, 60, 70 years old, can hardly walk, and wants to go out and put a pile of bait on his own land to shoot a deer, or he's hungry, just wants to get a deer. I'd have a hard time restricting that. But when you start having people putting, you know, dump trucks of corn on their property to pull the deer off the public, to protect them or whatever, and they have in their mind, or to kill them, that's hard to deal with. I mean, you can get anti-hunters too that just, if feeding's legal, maybe hunting's not, but feeding is, they'll put giant piles of bait on their properties just to pull the deer away from hunters that'll kill them. You know, so I guess there has to be some sort of regulation there, regardless.
Let's see. Kirk Anderson says, as a bow hunter, I hate that Minnesota's firearm season is during the rut. And I know, talking to, you probably know, a Lockdown from the forum, Ryan, he lives in Minnesota, and I've talked to him quite a bit, and he talks about, I think it's like it's usually around the 4th or 5th, 6th. I forget their season setting, but it's always like the first week of November, you know, later in that first week, which is like prime rut time. And yeah, it drives a lot of people in Minnesota nuts, and they have, you know, numbers problems, and especially like the western and the northern part of the state. So I can see why that would be a problem.
Is I don't think they're gonna kill a lot of your really mature bucks during that, but what they do is they slaughter the 2-year-olds. A 2-year-old buck will think with his wiener more than he'll think with his brain. It's kind of like the teenage man, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And a 2-year-old buck usually has a fairly decent rack that most people will shoot it. You know,
Sure.
probably the people that are on the show are probably the elite people. So it might take exception to me saying most people, but most people really, when you look at all people, will shoot
all
a
hunters,
2-year-old.
yeah.
I mean, yeah. And so they'll kill out the up and comers. So you'll never have a lot of big bucks. You know, even if you generate bucks, even so, I know people that I don't know if you remember Jeff G from the site that used to be on the site years ago. Him and his family would go up to their property, and every year they would all shoot 2-year-olds, and it'd be like, look at the big bucks we got. You know, hey, more power to them. But that's why they were being able to shoot all those 2-year-olds is because of that rifle season, and that's why they weren't shooting real big bucks. I mean, to them they were happy. That was big bucks to them. But if you're their neighbor and you're like me or you, who want to shoot, 5 or 6-year-olds, you're just sitting there going, really? You know, maybe if you get a 2-year-old freak that's real big or something, and even then, what's it going to be the next year? Not to say, I'm not telling anybody they shouldn't shoot 2-year-olds. I'm just saying it's when you put a rifle in somebody's hand, you put those 2-year-olds in a rut, it makes it a little bit easy.
Yeah. Let's see. Crowned Gamer says our Missouri. Here's a good one. We hadn't talked about this. Our Missouri non-resident tags are too cheap. We're missing out on a lot of money compared to surrounding states. In Missouri, there's an example right next to Iowa. I've heard several guys say that they think habitat-wise, Missouri is actually better than Iowa, but because Iowa's management so much better, Missouri is a $2 state, and it's a rifle in the middle of the rut, unlike Iowa, where their rifle season's early December or whatever. So, what's your take on that? Non-resident tag prices specifically. Wisconsin's are cheap too, right? For non-residents.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, first year we're $85. First time you ever hunt Wisconsin, it's $85.
Crazy.
Then it doubles. So it's half price your first year, the first time you hunt. I'm actually in favor of lower price tags, just because I think that you price out the meat hunters or the people of average income. When you start having $700-800 tags, it's just kind of ridiculous. It just you're not buying a side of beef, you're just going hunting. And they should promote that. It's good for society. It's good for people. It's good for our health. But whatever, regardless of that, I would be in favor of I like the fact that Wisconsin has an $85 start tag. Gets people to come up here, give it a try. Who's involved. With that said, my public area around here has just been getting inundated with non-resident plates. Just been seeing tons of them where I never used to in the past. But all good. You can set a limit on how many people can come too. You can make it an application process. But I am kind of in favor of a reciprocatory type tag. And what that would be like, say you charge $75 for a Wisconsin tag. But if your state charges more, you got to pay the difference. So if we're $75 and you're coming from Iowa and they're $700, well, I'm sorry, but you have to pay Wisconsin $700 for the same experience that we're paying to hunt there. I don't know if you could ever get it done, but I think that would be a great thing to do. And I think because what happens is I watched Iowa do some of this I seen some of their emails. I'm on their email list. And you see some of the stuff they send to their residents that'll say things like, if the non-residents are paying more, instead of charging you guys, we're charging the non-residents, and I'm lowering your taxes and your costs by charging them. Their governor says that, about us paying that tag fee.
Yeah.
It's kind of like how ticked off I get when I drive through Illinois and through some of the states that got these tolls. I drive in Illinois and right away, now they don't even have toll attendants. So they tell you to go online and you can't find it. There's no record of you driving through their state. Then all of a sudden they send you a letter and say, okay, you didn't pay it, so now you got to pay 4 times it or whatever. It's like a trap and a trick. I would be in favor of we put a toll booth on the Wisconsin border, and only states that have the plates from the states that charge us have to stop and have to pay what their state charges us. I'm in favor of that reciprocatory stuff. I mean, if you're going to treat somebody like that, expect to be treated back the same way. It's no different if somebody's a jerk to you. You don't just keep asking them how their day is and patting them on the back. After a point, you're a jerk back, right?
Yeah. The tag prices are an interesting one because you would think that would slow people down. High tag price, and Iowa's a perfect example. A lot of places you have to have 4, 5, 6 points. The points are $60 a crack now. So let's say it's 5. That's $300.
That's why you're not hearing all that crap about Illinois. Illinois is a great place to hunt, but it's an expensive tag.
Yeah.
So a lot of people won't go there. A lot of your filmers won't go there because of the tag price. Funny, they still go to Iowa probably because of the reputation, but Illinois has some great hunting too. Maybe not as good as Iowa. It used to be. It used to be, probably better than Iowa back in the day. If you went back to like early 90s, but it started getting a lot of pressure and getting divided up, the properties and stuff. But yeah, tag prices do have an effect on people.
I'll be curious to see, because a lot of people probably don't know, Montana is actually one of the most expensive non-resident deer tags. They make you buy some other stuff. So your tag alone is like $700, but then they make you buy, conservation license, base license, all this other stuff. Well, by the time you get out the door, it's a little over $800. And this last year, if I was coming from, and like you, I've seen more non-resident plates the last 2 years than you can imagine. But if I was paying those prices to travel, because, Montana's not a small state, 8, 10, 12, 20 hours to get here, and seeing the quality of deer that I saw last year, which was not good, I'll be curious if the applicants go down, because right now it's still pretty high odds draw where you can't get a tag every year, every other year, maybe, or every third year. But I'll be curious, kind of like the mid 2000s, the quota was higher than the applicant. So I'm going to wonder if that's going to go back that way, where the applicant pool is going to get a lot smaller. Because, just not to get into politics or economics, but everybody knows the economy is not doing the greatest right now. So between that and the deer hunting getting worse here, I'll be interested to see what happens going forward.
Yeah. One thing a lot of people don't know too is in a lot of these states, the money doesn't go back into hunting. It doesn't go back into the state that way. It goes to the governor's office. Like in our state, the governor is in charge of the DNR. So he decides what happens with the money that they get from hunting. So maybe, when you have a good governor and you want him to have a little money to do things, but when you got a liberal piece of crap in like I have right now, you'd probably like to see him get nothing. He's using that money to destroy us. But it's deer hunting money, literally, no matter who's in office or who you favor, that money should go back into the hunting. It should go to manage the state. So like, I believe Iowa, they're saying they're reducing the taxes of the residents and stuff with the hunter fees, when really that should probably be going to management and law enforcement and things like that.
Yeah, Montana, they're real good. They do charge an expensive tag for non-residents, but they have some good programs where they pay private landowners to allow public hunting access, and they do land acquisitions and stuff. So I can't complain how they're spending the money, but it is an expensive tag.
One thing you got to keep in mind too, like you brought up hunter tags and and the money coming in. You got to remember the tag fee is a little piece of it. So state-wise, I mean, they don't see it in one spot. But what you're doing for the state by bringing people in here, you're filling up motels, you're filling up restaurants, you're filling up stores, your gas stations are selling gas. I go down to Nebraska. We went down there for a week or something. I can't remember what it was, but it was last September. I know I dropped like $1,500 down there. So the tag price wasn't that much, but the whole community was bettered because I was down there. It was a small town. We're in there spending money. We're at all the restaurants spending money, and the whole community is helped by you going down there and hunting. So it goes well beyond the hunting tag. So they don't really have to get all that money for tags, especially if it's going into the governor's pocket.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's an interesting one from where did I had it? Science First is this guy's name. It said South Carolina, you have to be at your mode of transportation the moment it is no longer legal to shoot. That is a terrible regulation. Can you imagine that, Dan, if you were hunting 2 miles back till but you had to be back to your truck? It's like you'd have to leave an hour before prime time.
The worst part is you got to understand all these laws.
Yeah.
It's really easy to get in trouble in a non-travel state.
Yeah.
Because it's real, especially a guy like me that goes to several states in a year, you can miss something pretty easy on a regulation. Now, two, you got to get to the point where you understand that certain properties have certain regulations. I mean, I really wanted to go down and hunt Alabama in January this year, but I really didn't have any connections down there. And I started looking at, okay, on certain properties you can hunt does, certain ones you can hunt bucks, certain ones you can't hunt this day and that day. And I'm like, how am I ever going to straighten all this stuff out and not know it? So I just didn't go, because you got to know your laws, you know.
Yeah.
But I mean, we've got properties in Wisconsin, and I think just about every state up this way, I know Minnesota has the same, where some properties are U.S. government properties and some are state properties. And the U.S. government properties, you have to be out of the woods within a half an hour of dark. Now, if you're hunting in a island, you know, in this particular marsh is 3 miles back, you are not getting back to your truck if you hunt in the evening by half an hour, you know, before dark. And you can't go out of your truck before a half an hour before daylight. So, I mean, right down to the minute they time it. So what are you going to do? But that's just a few properties. So if you're looking at the regular regulations, you're looking at the DNR's regulations, you'd never even see that. You have to look at what the federal regulations are for federal properties to understand that. But when you look at your Spartan Forge or, you know, your app, it's going to show that it's public land.
Yeah.
You know, and that ain't just here. I mean, that's Minnesota has regulations like that. Where I hunt in Minnesota for bear, I can use trail cameras on public land because of who owns the public land. But the next property over is public land, and you're not allowed to use trail cameras. And you got to understand that stuff. It's crazy.
You're bringing up a great point. And one of the things that I've started doing, because I don't want to get too much into what I do in my day job, but if I get in trouble, I have to self-report, right? So if I get a game ticket or whatever, I've got to self-report, and then I could potentially lose my job over it. So the one thing that I've gotten the practice of doing whenever I go to hunt a new state is, if I got it narrowed down to a certain area, I always call the game warden. I say, hey, I read as much of the regs as I can. Tell me the top 3 or 4 things that you cite non-residents for. And I tell them the properties I plan on going to and say, what do I need to do to be 99% legal, right? What are the big things that people overlook or mess up? And they're usually really good about telling you, like, you know, here's 2 or 3 things that you might not have to deal with in your area that you have to deal with here. And it's like, it's very helpful. And it's a 5-minute phone call, you know, can save you a lot of problems.
Yeah.
Oh, let's see what else we got here. Jameson the One says, as a gun hunter, I hate Minnesota's archery season prior to gun season. Also, the designations are too liberal. Make many more buck only areas. So we got a guy that's primarily a gun hunter. That's interesting. He doesn't like that the archery season opens prior to gun. Probably in the minority there, but that's certainly a valid opinion.
Yeah. Can't say I agree with him, but I understand that.
Yeah. Let's see.
I mean, there are in Wisconsin, we have state parks are open to hunting. And here's another thing that non-residents probably wouldn't know. They just see that it's legal to hunt. But they open up in the middle of gun season.
Really?
Or no, just before gun season. I think it's November 15th or something like that. They open up. There's a date they open up on. And you cannot hunt in those parks before that. And you better know that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. There's, like you said,
that guy would like those because they pretty much open up for gun season, and then you can bow hunt afterwards.
It's kind of a unique take. Boy, when I first moved to Montana, you think some of these states' regulations are bad, and I won't go off too much of a tangent here, but Montana, you've got mule deer and whitetail deer. The regulations are pretty much the same. but some units you can shoot a mule deer and you can't shoot a whitetail or vice versa. But then you've got different regulations for elk. And on top of that, antelope, right? And the antelope districts are managed and numbered differently than the deer and elk, and the bear units are different, and the mountain lion units are different. And there's a book for everyone, and they're all minimum 30 pages. So, I mean, you got to be a lawyer and you got to read all that stuff, or it's real easy to get in trouble here.
I remember when I was a kid, the pamphlets used to be like 10 pages and it was all the rules.
Yeah.
Now the pamphlet's thick and it says, these are not all the rules. And you're required to know all the rules. It says that right in the book. In Wisconsin, it does.
That's crazy. Yeah. The deer and elk regulations, don't quote me on this, from Montana, just deer and elk. I guess the antelope's in that book too. It's like 270 pages long now. Yeah. Justin Han asks, Dan, you ever tried cattails for a wind checker instead of milkweed?
Yeah, they're a little heavier. They don't work as good, but they'll work if you don't have milkweed.
We got two comments here back to back. Daddy Pub says, in Ohio, changed to no baiting and crossbow season same days as shotgun season. And the guy after in the woods says, no way. So, Dan, what do you think the biggest difference between hunting up north where you live would be as opposed to the south, for example, South Carolina?
In the south, I think the biggest difference would be there's a higher stem count and thicker cover year round than what we have up here, which makes it a little more difficult to find the deer. Probably a little more difficult to tell where the primary bedding is. I think overall, it's easier to hunt in North Country. Even if you had the exact same population we have, probably be easier to kill deer up here than it would be in southern states.
Okay. Oh, here's Uncle Lou. What the heck? No Bob Fulcrod, no Barry Wenzel tonight. Just you two. Great. I hope your listeners can deal with that.
Yeah.
We spoiled everyone with all this star power from the past. No, I think that's something you're gonna try to do on semi-regular, right, Dan? Is we're gonna try to get some third guest on here.
Yeah, not always a superstar, but I don't generally need to regurgitate all the people that just wander around from podcast to podcast either. I kind of like celebrating people that are great people to me. A lot of people that go around on these podcasts to me aren't great people. They just like talking about themselves. I like seeing people, that are trying to make an impact in hunting, trying to help people, or have really done some remarkable things, But we'll get some different people on. I mean, I would love to have, I can't think of his name, Scott Buckley on this channel now that we're over here, and talk to him about some stuff. I mean, I love having him on. He's just such a fun guy, and after hunting with him, I got a lot of different perspective with him now. I would like to have another Ashley Outdoors on. She's a young lady just starting out. I'd love to get she's just got this passion for helping people and for growing in the outdoors. I'd love to have her on at some point. Yeah.
Well, here's a good question for you, Dan. Akins says, or anyone in the chat, what are some good books you would recommend for a new hunter?
Books?
Yeah. I'll go first. If you're not on the forum, you should sign up on the forum, and there's a whole PDF called Greatest Tactical Threads that I can't remember the guy's name. It starts with an F, the forum member, but somebody took all those and put them into a PDF, and it's just a huge repository of some of the best tactical threads from the beast going all the way back to 2009 or 10. So that would be one of the first things I would recommend getting.
I would recommend my newest book on Feral. I think that's a great book for putting you in the right mindset. If if you like the stuff I talk about, you probably like that book.
Dan,
But as far as learning, yeah.
I would say for people that haven't got your book, give us like a 3 or 4 sentence overview. What's in the book? Like tactics, stories, everything. Give us a
It's
teaser.
There's a few tactics in there, but it's more about the passion and the journey and the mindset, getting you in the right gear of mind. I would recommend too, a little heard of guy. His dad was a senator. Yeah, I got some of his books right here, I think. See if I got any of them up here. Chris Eberhardt sent me this one. Whitetail Axis. That ain't bad. One of our guys on the that's probably even listening, Mike Perry. Secrets to taking mature bucks on public land.
Yeah, Mike Perry's a killer. I like to listen to his stuff.
Yeah. And this is who I was talking about, Jim Sensenbrenner. Many of you probably recognize that name. His dad was a great politician in Wisconsin, a senator, and friends of their family. The Love of Hunting. And he's got a new book somewhere here. I don't want to misquote what the name of it is, but A Look at Life from a Deer Stand. Where's the Outdoor Legends? That's the one I was thinking of. This is a pretty good book right here by Jim Sensenbrenner.
Who's the author on that one?
Jim Sensenbrenner.
Okay.
He's in Wisconsin here. That is all about the legends. His writing style is a lot like mine. That's why I kind of like him. More short and broken up rather than I can't stand if I got to go. I want to be able to just read a section and not have to come back to it for a month because of just the way I am.
Yeah.
But his 2 books are real good. And I'm not promoting him or anything. I don't get nothing out of that. I just like the guy and like his style of writing. So if somebody's looking for something new and fresh.
I can't remember the guy who wrote it, but if not necessarily for tactics, but it was a good read. The guy that used to be Fred Bear's hunting partner, Dan, maybe you'll remember his name, but he wrote a book called Chasing the Bear, and it reminded me of a lot of the stuff that Bob Fulkrod talked about, because Fred Bear and I can't remember this guy's name. Anyways, I read the book a couple of years ago, but they talked about like the polar bear hunt that Fred Bear went on Alaska and some of the villages they stayed in. There's a story about, I think, Fred hunting a tiger in India and stuff. So if you like those like adventure kind of stories, which I'm big into, that's a great book for that. Not necessarily an ideal deer tactics book, but a good adventure book. Let's see. Paul Pereira says, "Hey guys, got a question. I'm a new hunter hunting on a very small property, 20 acres. If I'm seeing lots of does on camera, what can I learn from that? I haven't touched the cameras in 2 months." It'd be helpful to know if lots of does, if they were daylight or dark too, but sorry, Dan, go ahead.
Yeah. So no bucks, all does. And, I mean, has he been hunting this all season, the rut too, and no bucks or what?
That's all it says. Can't give you much more there.
Okay. He's hunting a small property. Here's my advice. You got cameras out there. I would expect nowadays you're probably using cell cam technology and you're getting the photos sent to you. I would probably monitor that property and I'd spread out. I think one of the biggest problems people have in having success, the reason they don't have success is because they go to the same properties they know and hunt the same spots they know. You know, you look at all the big bucks I've shot on public land, they're spread out all over the place. I go to where they are, I find them and I hunt them down and kill them. If you don't have something on your property right now, I wouldn't be hunting there. I mean, saying, okay, I got a bunch of does, you know, what can I do? What can I do to get a buck here? I mean, you can hope, wish, and call and put out buckets of corn all you want. If they're not there, they're not going to come in. The way to kill those big bucks is to go find them. So, like a lot of times with me, you know, like I used to have Dave's farm. You know, I could go out there anytime I wanted. 70 acres, small acreage, had a few big bucks on there, and probably because you know the pressure, and I don't overpressure it, better than the public I'm hunting. But I'd go out there and hunt a few times. I wouldn't pound it. And I'd go spread myself around the public, and I'd monitor the cameras. And, you know, you're waiting for that buck to come in, but more likely than not, I'd kill one on the public because I'm moving around. So my whole plan would be, you know, if I go into a season, I know where the bucks were last year. I know what I've seen shining. I know what I've gotten on camera up until season. And I got an idea where some bucks are. So I'll go throw some hunts in an area, and I'll look at the sign while I'm in there. Hunt some bedding areas and stuff. Look at the rub lines coming out, the tracks and stuff. And I'll hop around to a bunch of places. And then at some point, I'm going to get into a deer. And then I'll narrow that focus on that property. If you can't just focus on one property and say, well, there's a bunch of does in here right now. What am I going to learn from this? Where's the buck coming from? If there's no bucks there, that's what you're learning from that. There's no bucks right now.
Yeah.
You know, especially if you're in late season. Was this guy in the north?
Nah, it doesn't say, Dan.
Well, if he's anywhere in in a colder climate, you know, where there's no leaves and stuff like that right now, and at this time of the year, and it's past rut, you know, I don't know if he's down in Alabama or something, but if it's past rut, and all he's seen is those deer are bunched up right now. Bucks are bunched with them. There's no bucks there. There's no bucks. I mean, I'm running a trail camera on one little tiny property where last year I had a really big buck coming in late season and a couple other bucks. This year it's all does and a couple little bucks. There's just not a big buck there right now.
Yeah. Let's
that's just the way it is.
Let's do one more here. And this is an interesting question. Mark Abney says, what do you think about supplemental feeding late winter into spring other than food plots? ... corn and mineral.
Well, minerals ain't really feeding. I don't know that it hurts much other than to, or helps much. I don't think it holds deer minerals so much, but it is good for getting pictures. It'll get them focused around a certain spot. As far as corn goes, corn feeding isn't really helping the deer a whole lot. I mean, it'll hold them on your property. It'll bring them in. They'll remember that. They'll come back for years to where the corn was, believe it or not. But it doesn't really help deer. As a matter of fact, I know people who've thought they were helping deer when they had huge snowstorms and put out a truckload of corn on their properties and killed half the deer. Deer can't digest corn the same. They have to have a mixture of it. It can't just be corn. And if they eat too much corn and they get on a diet of corn, like they have an endless supply of it, they'll actually starve to death in winter from eating corn if they're not mixing buds and grasses and stuff in with it too. And there's actually people who put a ton of corn on their properties who've actually starved their deer to death because they fill up their stomachs and then they can't eat nothing else. And it takes them a while to go through that corn. So you do got to be careful. I mean, a lot of times people are making decisions that biologists should probably be making for themselves. You know, supplemental feeding is one thing to bait, and it's a whole nother thing to supplemental feed because you can, you know, I guess it doesn't probably hurt if it's legal to do it in small quantities, but just be careful that you're not putting out, you know, like thinking that you're actually making these deer more healthy or getting them through a winter with corn. You're probably not. I mean, if they're that starved, hay bales would work better.
Yeah, and there's I don't know why I know it, but the term is called rumen, rumen acidosis. So if you want to look that up, it's specific to grain. And I had a guy on my podcast, which I've since retired from. He's a deer biologist at Penn State University, and he writes the PSU Deer blog, which is a real good resource for if people like nerdy research stuff. Shameless plug there for PSU Deer blog. Anyways, he was on my podcast, I don't know, 2-3 years ago now, and he talked about that. And it's grain specifically. So corn, like you said, Dan, hay is better. They get this thing called rumen acidosis, and their stomachs from summer to winter change in the winter to be able to more readily and easily digest woody browse, which is what's available in the winter, typically, especially for deer in the, you know, the Midwest and the North. So when you give them that high octane fuel, that messes up their stomach calibration, and like Dan said, basically kills them, or can kill them. Doesn't always kill them, but yeah, you're better off doing, or if you've got like you know, dogwood or popples or stuff that's above the browse line, cutting down trees like that, or white cedars, you know, winter food sources for deer, you'd probably be better off making some of that stuff accessible than you would just going straight corn.
Yeah.
All right, Dan, we're running a little long today here. We're at 1:20, so that's all the stuff I had in deer management. I want to thank everyone in the chat. We had a lot of good interaction there. We're trying to get a chat overlay working here, but I thought I had it figured out. We had some issues, so we're trying to upgrade some of the features of the show here, but got to test it out and get it working. So hopefully more improvements to come. Anything from you, Dan?
Nope.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, appreciate everybody signing in, and we'll see them back here next Tuesday, 7 Central. Thanks.